You know the feeling. The lottery is at record levels, you never buy tickets, and you think this is it. I'm going to be the next multi-millionaire winner of the lottery. You rush down to the gas station, buy your winning ticket, and wait. A week goes by, and the draw occurs, and you think surely. You run out to the car, rush down to where you bought your ticket, scan your ticket, and nothing. You didn't win. And you're out $10. But what if you did win? Are you set for life? And if you never win, is that money better spent elsewhere? According to an article by Search Logistics, 70% of lottery winners end up broke. This is because most people don't know how to manage their money, and when they get a large chunk of money, they have no experience on what to do with that money. Most people that end up millionaires do so gradually. They build up that money over time through investments in either real estate, their own company, the stock market, and by the time they hit millionaire status, they are well versed in budgeting, investing, and managing their money. About half of the people in the US play the lottery inconsistent, and more play during periods of high jackpots. So when the Powerball jackpot was over $1 billion, pretty much everybody was buying a ticket for that small chance to win. Only about 10% of the population in the US plays weekly, and this number jumps to about 25% in Canada. Probably us Canadians trying to capitalize on that tax-free lottery winnings. In the States, it is taxed as regular income. Your odds of winning, though, in the States, on the Powerball or the MegaMillions, is 1 in 300 million. Not very good odds. In Canada, your odds are slightly better than that, at 1 in 14 million to about 1 in 28 million of winning one of the big prizes. In the US, people spend about $220 per year on the lottery. In Canada, this number is about $550 to $620 through a broad range of incomes. This works out to between $18 and $40 per month for the US and Canada, respectively. Also, these are averages across the entire US and Canada. Some people spend way less or nothing, and some people spend way more. Comment down below, how often do you play the lottery? And what do you usually play? Is that scratch tickets? Are you entering the big prizes? Or some other form of lottery? Now, what should you do if you win the lottery? If you win the lottery, you'd be best to put it in some form of long-term investment. So rather than spending it all at once on a new Lamborghini, a new house, a vacation home down in Florida, or some other tropical country, you'd be best investing that in an S&P 500 index fund or some other fund that's going to invest in the broad market and pay you a steady rate every month. This way you can basically retire and live debt-free for the rest of your life. Most people don't do this though. They go and buy the fancy stuff that they've never been able to afford and end up blowing all their money in 3 to 5 years, and then they're right back working the 9 to 5 that they thought they were free from. But what if you, instead of buying your lottery tickets, were to invest that money instead? How much could you make if you were investing that money over a period of, say, 30 years? I think some of the numbers will surprise you. If you use the Canadian average spending numbers of $10 a week and invested that money in just a straight up cash account where you're investing $10 a week every week for 30 years. Assuming you invested at a rate of around 3%, which is a good average over the last 30 years for guaranteed investments such as GICs or high interest savings accounts, your money would grow to a value of $23,000 over the course of 30 years. This number would jump significantly to $37,000 over 40 years. This number doesn't seem like much, but remember, the average person will go their whole life without winning the lottery. So they're spending $10, $20, maybe $100 a week on something that they'll never win. The next method would be investing in the stock market. I can't think of the amount of times I've been listening to either the Berkshire Hathaway annual general meeting or other famous investors being interviewed. Most of the time they're asked the question, how should you invest? And pretty much all of them will reply, pick up broad market index funds, spread your money around by diversification, and you can earn 7 to 10% on average per year. Some years will be better, some years will be worse. But on average, over the past 30, 50 years, the stock market has returned between 7 and 10%. So why should you invest in broad market index funds? The pros aren't doing this. They're picking individual stocks, so why can't you? According to Rediff.com, 90% of retail investors, when they try and pick their own stocks, will lose money. Most people fail because they're investing with too much emotion. They're either following the hype, buying GameStop at the peak and watching it fall, buying weed stocks at the peak, watching them fall, buying cryptocurrency at the peak. You get the picture. Now, that's not to say you specifically will fail, you might turn out to be the next Warren Buffett, the next Mark Cuban, the next Kevin O'Leary. You never know until you try. But a much safer method of investing in the stock market would be to buy low-cost index funds, such as one that tracks the S&P 500. The S&P 500, on average, has returned 7%. This is adjusted for inflation. If you take that $10 a week that you were spending on lottery tickets and invest it in a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, after 30 years, you will end up with $53,900, which again, it's more than cash, but it's not $1 million. But coming up are two methods that can guarantee you over $1 million just by investing $10 a week. The first method requires some effort on your part. The second method is very speculative, very risky, but it has the potential to return massive amounts of money to you. So the first method to potentially make you a millionaire is by starting a side hustle. There are many side hustles that you can start for as little as $10 a week. Some of these methods might not even need that much to get going. If you use the $10 a week for basic operating expenses, maybe that's gas for your car, stationery supplies for flyers, etc., you can easily grow something to $250 to $500 a week. This wouldn't require much extra time on your hands. Maybe you work evenings, some weekends, and that can generate between $1,000 and $2,000 a month. There are numerous videos online about starting side hustles for little to no money. Some of these could be grass cutting, starting a handyman business, or opening a store on Etsy. Let's take the example of grass cutting. I own a lawnmower and a trimmer, and I worked in lawn and garden while I was a student for 4 years. During that time, I developed skills to cut perfectly straight lines, trim, edge, and do all that very neatly and very efficiently. If I can find 10 lawns in my neighborhood and charge $50 a lawn, that's gonna net me $500 a week. Let's say I spend half of the money I make on operating expenses such as gas for the equipment maintenance, transportation costs. That would leave me with $250 a week. If I then take that $250 and invest that in the S&P 500 index, based on past returns, I would end up with roughly $1.3 million. This is a relatively guaranteed way to become a millionaire without having to rely on luck and very, very low odds. The final way I want to talk about could net you as low as $200,000 or as high as $10 million. It really depends on what this sector will do in the upcoming years. If you haven't guessed, that sector is investing in cryptocurrency. I wouldn't say take a retirement fund and dump it all in crypto, because who knows, it could go to zero. It doesn't really have any servable purpose right now. Sure, you can buy some things online, you can trade your crypto for other cryptocurrencies, you can buy some NFTs, but really, does anybody really understand crypto? But it has done very well over the last 10 to 15 years since it was created. Ethereum launched in 2014 and had a value of only 31 cents. Right now, a single Ethereum is in the $3,200 range. Bitcoin launched a bit earlier in 2009, and some of the first transactions traded at 9 to 10 cents per Bitcoin. A Bitcoin now is roughly worth $56,000. That gives you a yearly return of 52% for Bitcoin and 48% for Ethereum. If you took that money that you were spending on lottery tickets, $10 a week, and instead invested that in crypto, and even assumed even half of the overall returns that it has experienced, you would end up with $1.7 million at the end of it. Even with something as low as a 15% return, that would still net you nearly $200,000. A lot more than the slim chance of winning the lottery. Now, these numbers were all based on taking $10 a week that you would have been spending on lottery tickets and putting that money towards various forms of investment. If you spend much more money than that on lottery tickets per week, your overall returns will be much higher. And if you spend less, your overall returns will be much lower. So maybe it is worth it to risk it for the lucky chance that you could win over $1 million with the lottery. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below. Check out my previous video linked here. Comment down below. How often do you buy into the lottery? Is it weekly? Is it only the occasional ticket? Is it more than weekly? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.